Hey there, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Really glad you could join us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
We're digging into a bunch of sources you sent over some articles, a research paper, even a guide.
All pointing towards this fascinating intersection, right? Blockchain tech and real estate,
Exactly. It feels like something that could really shake things up.
for sure. And our mission today is basically to unpack all this material. We want to understand what blockchain truly promises for, buying, selling, investing in property,
Where's the real value? What are the big hurdles?
and critically, the human side. How do people actually feel about adopting this kind of change? It's not just about the tech specs.
No, definitely not. And we've got viewpoints from, well, investment groups, real estate professional bodies, and that academic paper looking specifically at acceptance.
Gives us a pretty rounded picture, hopefully.
So it's about understanding how it affects you, the listener, and the whole industry, really.
Exactly. Beyond the buzzwords, what does it mean practically?
Okay, let's get into it then. To really understand why blockchain is even part of this conversation, we kind of need to set the scene.
Look at the current state of play.
Yeah, traditional real estate deals. Why is change needed? What are the pain points?
Well, the sources, they paint a pretty clear picture. Traditional real estate, it's often incredibly time-consuming.
Yeah, and really labor intensive.
Right. And you've got so many people involved.
All those hands in the pot agents, lawyers, title companies.
Escrow services.
Right, yeah,
Exactly. And all those layers mean complexity and, well, high fees, too.
for sure. High fees for everyone in the deal.
And then there's just the struggle of sharing data, often manually between all these different players.
Plus the reliance on paper documents. That seems fragile.
It is vulnerable to getting lost, damaged, even outright fraud sometimes.
And I thought it was interesting. One source mentioned this idea of information asymmetry.
Yeah, the idea that historically not everyone had the same info.
Right, and that kind of benefited the professionals, maybe created a bit of a clandestine world, as they put it, before the internet started opening things up a bit with listings.
Yeah, the internet helped with seeing what's for sale, for sure. But the underlying process,
Still slow.
still pretty bound by those older methods, transferring ownership, verifying everything, moving the money.
Permits, legal stuff,
Yeah.
can take ages, cost a fortune.
Exactly. So that's the context. That's the problem space.
Okay, so enter blockchain. How does this technology propose to, cut through all that inefficiency?
Well, blockchain is presented as this potential fundamental shift. The core idea is this secure, transparent, distributed digital ledger.
A shared record book, basically, but super secure.
Sort of, yeah. And it offers potential solutions to many of those problems we just talked about.
All right, let's build this up. Where does it start making a difference? What's the first big value add?
I'd say it starts with verification and trust, establishing that single source of truth.
Because it's immutable, hard to tamper with.
Exactly. That's the key. Once data's on the blockchain, changing it is incredibly difficult, borderline impossible sometimes. So it's ideal for securing digital property records rights.
So, like the title deed itself, you could put that on the blockchain.
Precisely. Property titles, the history of ownership, even verifying identities that KYC, know your customer stuff.
Oh, interesting.
And even things like, say, building certifications or maintenance history.
Wait, maintenance history. That's clever. A source mentioned that could actually boost a property's value?
Because it's verifiable, right. A future buyer doing due diligence can trust that information more.
Yeah, I can see that.
It creates this clear, transparent timeline. And it guarantees the legitimacy of transfers, especially if you link it to smart contracts, which can automate parts of the deal.
Okay, we'll get to smart contracts. But this immutability, it helps with fraud detection, compliance.
Hugely. And just makes the whole due diligence process simpler, potentially faster.
Okay, so that's the foundation. Trust, verified records. What about the actual doing? Moving money, processing the sale.
Right, the transaction itself. Because blockchain is decentralized, it allows for more direct peer-to-peer interaction.
Meaning you could potentially move money buyer to seller without needing, say, a traditional bank or escrow, just for basic verification steps.
That's the idea. It streamlines things.
And the sources mentioned using crypto, didn't they, for payments?
Yeah, examples popped up places like Tukwila in the US, parts of the UK, Malaysia exploring using crypto as the medium of exchange.
Or even just tracking payments to contractors during a build, putting that on the blockchain.
For transparency, yeah.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads us nicely into smart contracts.
Right, okay. Smart contracts. Explain these. What's the real impacts? So what?
Okay, think of them as like Automated agreements. They're just bits of code programmed onto the blockchain that execute themselves.
Self-executing.
Yeah. The source used a simple rental example, like if the renter pays the deposit into a specific digital wallet by a certain date, then the smart contract automatically releases the digital key or door code on move-in day. Ah, okay, so the code is the agreement, and it just runs itself when the conditions are met. No need for someone to check and manually click release.
You got it. That's the automation power. Instead of waiting for a human intermediary, like an escrow, to verify things and release funds or documents.
The smart contract just does it based on the pre-agreed rule.
Exactly. Automatically, transparently,
Yeah.
it could massively simplify or even replace some functions of traditional intermediaries.
Or handle complex lease terms, break them down into code.
Yeah, potentially.
Right.
Automating clauses, enforcing conditions without constant oversight. Big potential for reducing friction and delays.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the official side? Land registries, property records kept by governments.
That's another big area. The sources point out many registries are still paper-based or use fragmented digital systems that don't talk to each other well.
So blockchain offers a unified, digital, immutable alternative.
That's the vision. Some sources even mention this ambitious idea of a one-world registry. Whoa, like view and verify property ownership anywhere, all in one system.
Yeah, improving how titles are managed globally, it's a big goal, but the potential is there.
And information access, like the MLS systems brokers use.
Right, the multiple listing service.
Yeah.
The databases of homes for sale.
How does blockchain help there? Just faster updates.
It's more fundamental. A blockchain-based universal MLS could mean better, truly real-time listing information for everyone. Less chance of seeing outdated listings or errors caused by manual entry.
Reduces redundancy.
Exactly. And it could potentially safeguard proprietary listing data better while maybe reducing the fees charged by current third-party MLS platforms.
How would that work? One giant database or?
The sources mentioned two possibilities, either one single massive blockchain database or maybe a universal protocol.
A protocol, like a common language.
Yeah, so all the existing software providers, the SaaS platforms brokers use, could adopt this protocol. They'd all speak the same language, updating each other instantly and accurately.
Interesting options. Okay, this is all fascinating groundwork. But one application that really jumped out from the sources was real estate tokenization.
Ah, yes, tokenization. This feels like, well, maybe the biggest potential unlock, especially for the investment side of real estate.
So what exactly is it, tokenizing real estate?
It basically means converting a real estate asset, or more often, a fraction of ownership in that asset, into digital tokens on a blockchain.
Like digital shares.
Pretty much. Often using standards like ERC 721 on Ethereum. That's just a technical standard for creating unique digital items. Think of it like a unique digital deed representing your slice of the property.
Okay, so instead of needing, say, millions to buy an office building, I could buy a token representing maybe 0.1% of it.
Precisely. And that unlocks some huge benefits. The biggest one, the real game changer everyone talks about, is liquidity.
Right, because real estate is famously illiquid, hard to sell quickly.
Exactly. Tokenization aims to free up that capital. It turns that solid, hard-to-sell building into potentially tradable digital tokens, like tiny shares you could maybe buy or sell more easily on a secondary market.
Which leads straight to accessibility, right?
Yeah.
Lowers the barrier to entry.
Spot on. Suddenly, real estate investment isn't just for the super wealthy or big institutions.
The sources mentioned platforms like Lufina, Homebase, Realty.
Yeah, demonstrating this already. Offering fractional ownership where you can start investing with maybe just $50 or $100. It really democratizes access.
And gives you global reach, too. You could invest in property anywhere, theoretically.
Right, not just limited by your physical location. Plus, you get the other blockchain benefits we discussed, increased transparency from those immutable records.
Clear ownership, clear costs.
Potentially greater cost effectiveness compared to complex traditional deals with lots of lawyers and paperwork.
And maybe even a 2-4-7 market, trading these tokens anytime.
That's the potential, yeah. Unlike waiting for lawyers' offices to open for a traditional closing, and potentially streamlined compliance built into the tokens themselves via smart contracts.
Wow. That paints a picture of a radically different investment world.
It does. The sources even mapped out the process, how an owner would get their property evaluated, handle the legal side, create the tokens, and how an investor would sign up, do KYC, pick a property, invest, and manage their stake.
It sounds revolutionary, however.
Uh-oh, here it comes.
Yes. This is where that academic research paper you shared brings in a really, really crucial point.
The one looking at buyer and seller acceptance.
Exactly. Because it highlights something critical. All these amazing technological benefits we've just listed, they don't automatically mean everyone's going to jump on board.
Adoption isn't guaranteed just because the tech is cool or potentially better. It depends on people.
Okay, so I was bracing myself for the findings to be about, ease of use or cost savings being the key drivers. Was that it? What did the study actually find were the most significant factors for people accepting this?
This is what's so surprising and maybe the most important insight from that specific source. Psychological factors were the strongest predictors of whether buyers and sellers were willing to use blockchain.
Psychological, not
Oh.
technical features, like how people feel about it.
Exactly. The positive drivers. Things like innovativeness, basically.
Yeah.
How open someone is to trying new tech, being an early adopter.
Okay, their personal mindset.
And optimism. Just having a positive attitude, believing that blockchain could genuinely improve things, solve problems in the industry.
That makes sense. People who believe in the potential are more likely to try it. What else?
There was also an external factor that gave it a push. The pandemic.
Ah, right, COVID-19.
Yeah, the sudden need for contactless processes, doing things digitally. It actually accelerated interest and acceptance. It kind of forced people's hands, made them more comfortable with digital alternatives out of necessity.
Okay, that tracks. So innovativeness, optimism, and the pandemic push were positive drivers. What about the negative ones? What stopped people?
Again, psychological factors. The study identified discomfort, just feeling overwhelmed, thinking the tech is too complex, feeling uneasy with it.
Like a fear of the unknown vibe.
Sort of.
Yeah.
And closely related was insecurity, a fundamental distrust or concern about the technology. Is it really reliable? Is it secure? Can it actually do what it promises? These feelings strongly hindered adoption.
Okay, wait. Let me get this straight.
Yeah.
The study found that the things you might expect to matter most, like how much it actually improves your job performance expectancy,
Uh-huh.
or how easy the system is to actually use effort expectancy.
Yep.
Or even what your friends or colleagues think about it, social influence,
Huh.
or whether you have the right tech support and infrastructure facilitating conditions. None of those were statistically significant drivers of acceptance in this study.
That's the really striking finding. It suggests that just building a technically superior system, one that's easier to use or demonstrably more efficient, might not be enough on its own.
Wow.
The real battle, according to this research, is for hearts and minds. It's about overcoming those feelings of discomfort and insecurity and nurturing optimism and that willingness to innovate. It's less about the features, more about the feeling.
That puts a whole different spin on the challenge of adoption.
It really does. And beyond that crucial human element, the other sources did flag some more predictable but still significant challenges.
Like what?
Well, the big one is often incumbents, the established players in the traditional real estate world who might, understandably, resist changes that disrupt their business models.
Makes sense.
Mm.
What else?
Legal uncertainty is huge. Laws and regulations are still catching up to blockchain and digital assets in many places.
Yeah, that's a big question mark.
Then there are technical hurdles like scalability. Can these blockchains handle millions of transactions smoothly? Market volatility, especially if cryptocurrencies are involved in the transaction?
The price swings could be risky.
Definitely. And just the overall complexity we touched on, which feeds back into that user discomfort and insecurity.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this deep dive up. We started with the old way, traditional real estate, full of friction, costs, intermediaries.
Lots of pain points. Then we saw how blockchain technology comes in with potential solutions, creating secure, trustworthy digital records,
Making verification and due diligence easier.
enabling faster, more direct transactions, especially with smart contracts, automating things.
Building better land registries, maybe even better MLS systems.
And then we hit tokenization, that huge potential shift for real estate investment.
Making it more liquid, way more accessible through fractional ownership, opening up global markets.
But then the twist. That crucial research showing it's not just about building the tech.
It's the human factor. Overcoming those psychological barriers, discomfort, insecurity seems even more important than the technical benefits for getting actual buyers and sellers on board.
It really paints a picture where, yes, blockchain could fundamentally change how you interact with real estate, making it more democratic, transparent, efficient.
But getting there, it's not just a tech problem.
No, it's about building trust, fostering that optimism the study mentioned, tackling the insecurity head on, and getting everyone regulators, traditional players, tech innovators to actually work together.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? Something for you, the listener, to think about as this all unfolds.
What's that?
Well, if that psychological readiness, if that industry collaboration is potentially more critical for adoption than how good the tech is or how easy it is to use,
Mm.
how long will it really take for blockchain in real estate to move past the hype, overcome all that inertia, and actually become the standard way of doing things?
Hmm. That's definitely something to chew on. The human element is always the wild card.
Indeed. Well, thank you for bringing these sources into the light today. It was a fascinating
Yeah,
set.
my pleasure. Lots to think about.
And thanks you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you a clearer view of the potential and the very real challenges at the intersection of blockchain and real estate.
Keep digging, keep asking questions, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.